Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Renee Garrett, and I'm your speech therapy PD podcast host for Brainstorms Functional Neurorehab for SLPs. Before we get started, we have a few items to alert you to. Each episode is 60 minutes and will be offered for zero point 0.1 Ask the CEU. Here are the financial and non-financial disclosures. Dr. Melissa Brunner is an author of Conversability, which may be commercialized in the future. She has no relevant non-financial relationships to disclose. I am the owner and founder of BrainBridge Connect, and as the host of this podcast, Brainstorms, Functional Neurorehab for SLPs, and other educational webinars on speech therapy PD. I do receive financial compensation. I am an adjunct instructor at both James Madison University and Old Dominion University. My non-financial disclosure is that I'm the secretary for the Communication Disorders Foundation of Virginia. Now, without further ado, we welcome our guest, Dr. Melissa Liss Brunner, PhD, MH, MHealth SC, CPSP, who is a senior lecturer and certified practicing speech pathologist at the University of Sydney, Australia. She has over 20 years experience in the assessment and management of swallowing and communication difficulties in adults, particularly working with people who have experienced a stroke or traumatic brain injury. Her clinical research addresses the use of digital health solutions to support participation and inclusion, in particular, the complexity of issues surrounding people with acquired brain injuries who use social media and how it may or may not be addressed during their rehabilitation. She feels passionately about including those with lived experience in her work and is an author of Social Ability Training, part of the Social Brain Toolkit project. Liz, hi, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
Of course. I'm so excited because you were a part of the team that was going to join us last year, and your lecture abilities and capacity are remarkable.
Didn't really help us make it happen, did it?
Yeah, remarkable, but also a barrier. So I'm so grateful that you agreed to come on and join us. And so in America tonight is a big deal. We are not only having this great holiday to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr., but secondary to that, it is our college football championship night.
So it's a big night.
It's a big night times 2 here. So
Yeah.
I don't know how many people are going to join in, but we have the luxury of recording and always, replaying. So again, grateful to have you. So, last season, kind of wrapping up in the second half, I was really getting into asking the guests how people came into the field. So are you comfortable sharing how you came into the field of speech pathology? Because I think it's super interesting hearing it from your perspective, being in Australia versus us in the US.
It was a long time ago, Renee. But for those of you who don't know much about Australia, I'm based in Sydney. I'm on Gadigal lands at the University of Sydney. I'm currently I'm actually working from home today, so I'm on Guringai and Darug lands here. But I didn't grow up in Sydney. So it's like very metropolitan. It's not the capital of Australia, but it's one of the biggest cities in Australia. I grew up rurally. So I grew up in a regional town called Lismore. It's up north from Sydney, and it's very close to Byron Bay. I don't know if anyone will know Byron Bay, but it is kind of where all the influencers go now. And it's beautiful beaches, really gorgeous green countryside. And that's where I grew up. So I was on Bundjalung lands up there, and I was finishing high school and I had zero clue what I was going to do. for a dog. And I was flicking through the uni book going, oh, what can I do? And I really like science, but I also really like English and languages. I'm not very good at languages, but I love them.
You are.
And speech pathology was there. And I went, oh, this actually sounds really interesting. And then I applied and got into uni and did uni. And it was, kind of the right thing for me, which was great. Whilst I was at uni, I met my now husband, and he's in a job that takes us around Australia. So I've actually travelled around Australia working as a speech pathologist. So I've worked in New South Wales, in the country and in the city, worked over in Western Australia, worked down in Victoria, and then I'm back in New South Wales again. And so I worked across a really different kind of context. So I worked in public hospitals and community health, as well as working privately, and kind of across the age range. In my first ever job, I worked in a generalist position. So I was seeing babies right through to people who were at the end of their life. But I did that for about 2 years and I went, okay, I can't keep doing the kid thing. I need to just work with adults now.
I
And
hear
so
ya.
since then, I've worked with adults because they tell the best stories, right?
They do.
And so I started specializing in working with people who've had an acquired brain injury not long after that. And so I've kind of been plodding along, learning lots over the years through working with people who've either had a stroke or a traumatic brain injury, or they might have dementia or something along those lines. And I kind of evolved to where I'm at today.
Yeah, no, you have a very similar path to me. I started out in inpatient rehab, but
Yeah.
this is my second career. So I started out as a caregiver for my dad who had a stroke when I was very young. And, inpatient rehab is for the US is the highest level of rehab. That's where you get 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I still call it my first love. I love that.
Right.
Just love that environment so much. And
Yeah.
I've worked in assisted living. I've worked in acute care for the majority of my career. So all the ICU. We also had an LTAC floor, so long-term acute care and outpatient as well. And every setting really has its pluses and minuses. Is everything
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then across academia too, because I've been adjunct faculty for this would have been my 11th year, but I actually just said I'm not coming back because it's just a lot. But
Well, it's
I
fun to do.
something. Yeah, it is. It is. It's hard to juggle and balance when you're doing other things too. If you're not fully into academia, it is a challenge. But
Yeah.
I really want to jump into this episode because I think that we have a lot of ground to cover, but I'm so excited because I've been working through this course on the social ability. I'm not done. I wanted to be done before we did the podcast, but we had
Life catches up to you.
everybody had a holiday and it's summer for you, it's winter for us, and winter
Yeah.
here is not usually this wintry, but we're supposed to get snow. So eek.
Yeah, I'm
But
not great with snow.
yeah, same. Neither. We lived in Iceland for 3 years, so I'm good on the snow. My capacity is good. But just thinking about, when we're thinking about acquired brain injury, I think a lot of people forget that acquired brain injury can be traumatic brain injury that, it continues to be prevalent in the patient's life. We
Yeah.
refer to stroke a lot of times as acquired brain injury. So it kind of does combine those two things when you're thinking about a patient who's living with either of those things. And we're thinking about how these cognitive changes when someone has an acquired brain injury impacts their communication, but also particularly their online communication. Because a lot of times what happens is I mean caregivers and family members who really mean well,
Yeah.
but they really tend to cut off that social communication from on an online standpoint, whether it's text messages, emails, um, social media in general. So, what can you tell us about that and how these effects from cognitive changes really impact people with ABI and how they are able to interact socially online?
Yeah. Well, I mean, after an ABI, there's so many things that can really change how you interact with other people and how you communicate, and how you react to what other people tell you. Um, and so all of those things are applicable in the online space as well, right? So if you're having trouble paying attention to a conversation face to face, then that might be the case in online spaces as well. Or so, you might get distracted if you're in the middle of saying something and start talking about something else. That might be the same if you're starting to write a post or replying to someone in social media. You might get distracted and completely change topic and say something that doesn't really make sense. Or you might get distracted and stop writing what you were writing. Or, we know that impulse control can be a big issue for many people. And so you could actually, post or respond to people without thinking about what you're saying and the potential consequences of what you're saying. So you might overshare information, or you might friend way too many people just because they send you a friend request. Or you might click things that pop up in your feed and you go, oh yeah, that looks interesting, without thinking, oh, this might be dodgy. The other thing is, emotions can be really hard to navigate after a brain injury as well. And so, I feel like I'm probably saying something really obvious to everyone in the States at the moment, because there's lots going on, particularly in the online space, that isn't necessarily positive. And so that can become really overwhelming, and that can be potentially really negative for people if they've got just heaps of negative content in their feed. Or it could be that there's just so much information there that they get overloaded by it, and it's really hard to kind of navigate that space. Or they could just react really strongly to something and not be able to navigate their emotions around it, and that may influence then how they respond or post or repost things. And it's also just an additional thing in your life as well. So it can create just additional load, and so it could be a worry for people, or it could be something that they used to enjoy and now it's really effortful, and that's frustrating. So there's like a multitude of, I could probably talk about this for a whole hour, but that gives you kind of a bit of an idea of some of the challenges people can face. And that's without really even kind of going into the realm of cyber safety in online spaces as well. But yeah, social media moves really fast, and that can be really challenging.
Well, I think that's challenging for all of us, really, because you
Yeah,
brought up a lot of really good points already that, the social media space moves fast, but it's also, a lot of people are not proactive, they're reactive. And
yeah,
then if you compound that with something like a stroke or a brain injury, where they may not have the cognitive ability or the attention to deal with the processing of what this feed is they're getting, right? Because even I sometimes get overloaded with, I get on social media a lot. I shouldn't do it in the
yeah.
morning. I should just read my book. Yeah. When I get on social media, because it's really brainless sometimes for me to just like wake up to that.
Yeah.
And
I
it is.
don't think you're alone in that, Renee.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No, I totally get that. But well, I don't know if I don't think I have a brain injury. Sometimes I was an athlete. I don't know. Do I? Did I have a brain injury?
Yeah.
But I'm totally joking when I say that, and I shouldn't be so crass, but it's it's very challenging to think that just our average everyday habits, right? When we get on social media and we're scrolling
Yeah.
through, or some people use the term doom scrolling. I try not to do that so much, but
Yeah.
if we had a cognitive or communication challenge, we can see how that would be super impactful for online communication. And for me, I'm thinking more like the general social apps like Instagram, Facebook. I don't really do X or Threads or whatever, but
Yeah.
for a lot of people, they're doing dating apps.
Yeah.
It's another one where we're not thinking about our patients because some of them aren't in a single person or a monogamous relationship. Maybe they don't have a partner. They're getting on these social apps where they're trying to find a date and doing all these
Yeah.
things, and it's really difficult. um so thinking about those red flags, safety strategies, how do we teach that to people for their reduction of risk for their really safety is what it's about. Not just
Yeah.
online safety, but personal safety as well, because we see a lot of that now where in the media where people are on these social apps and they go to meet up with someone and it's a
Yeah.
disaster.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because we all use social media so individually as well, there's so many different sort of red flags or risk factors to consider. Um, I think I can see Tiffany's kind of put in the chat, yeah, using social media can get really addictive. And I think, that can certainly be the case because within the algorithms of social media, it's built in. They want you to keep scrolling. They want you to keep looking, and so it takes a lot of presence of mind to kind of go, actually, I need to put that down and go and get on
Yeah.
with my day. And that can be much, much harder once you've had a brain injury. So you can become really overly fixated on social media and just spend lots of time scrolling through. And then that can lead to things like getting really bad cognitive fatigue from constantly being on social media platforms. Like I said, they can then, it can affect their emotions because you've got the fatigue, but also they might be reacting more emotionally to what they're seeing online. And so then that can mean that they're actually then withdrawing from people in real life a little bit as well. I've had heaps of people who've spoken to me about this over the years now. And some of the things that they've spoken to me about are around things like, their family and friends have told them not to use social media because they've been posting inappropriate things, and it'll get them in trouble and those sorts of things. And so there's this tension that people can see between their relationships because of how they're interacting with others online as well. But yeah, I think the other thing is people can be more vulnerable to online scams because, particularly if they've had a brain injury, they're not in a relationship and they're really looking for companionship or a romantic partnership because we all really like interacting with other people. It's that connection that we're after, right? And so there can be that vulnerability to romance scams in particular, but also finance scams and just oversharing of personal information, which can then put, their security at risk, whether that's their personal security or their financial security and things like that. So as a clinician, I kind of go, it's kind of my job to make sure people are aware of this, and I know that lots of other clinicians have lots of anxiety around this because, we're we're helpers. Like, you don't go into a job like speech pathology if you don't want to help people, I reckon. And so, we've got to find that right sort of balance between supporting people and being overprotective, right? And that's kind of the space where I like to sit and go, I really get that you're really concerned for this person, but they are an adult, adults, remember, and so this needs to be their choice, but it needs to be informed. So we need to make sure that they know that there's risk and what those risks are and how to look out for the risks, and how to navigate them, because the risk is real for everyone. It's not just for people who've had an acquired brain injury, right? And restricting isn't going to be helpful, I don't think, because it then just actually takes away someone's autonomy and choice. And potentially they could be meeting and interacting with like really cool people that are into interests that are similar to theirs. Like, I love seeing on Instagram people who are creative, and so artworks, knitting, crochet, you name it, sewing. I love watching what people create, and I love interacting with people and getting different ideas, and if I all of a sudden couldn't do that, that would remove some joy from my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, being able to connect or see others that are into the same things as you or want to talk about similar things, it's kind of part of why we're social beings. So this is just one way to do it. And I think, we can help people to do it whilst also helping them navigate the risk. And so I think we need to build up our own confidence as clinicians in helping people. I think that's really critical. So, we can do that by building up our knowledge, but also recognizing that we don't need to know everything about every social media platform. Like, there's always a new one. It's too hard to stay on top of it all, right? But if someone wants to use a social media platform that I don't know anything about, I get them to tell me about it. They're the expert. I'm not. I'm just the one that's going to help them navigate it, kind of thing. Yeah. So I think there's different things we can do to help support people.
Yeah, and I love thinking of that and as hobbies or interests when you mention knitting or crocheting or that kind of thing, or art, because I think a lot of people do that. I in another life, when I first got on social media, and I won't say what year that was, in particular, I was very into, and I still am, like, I cook a lot. I'm very into like nutrition and cooking.
Yeah.
Brain health for that. And I used to take pictures of my food all the time, not just food in the restaurant, but food that I actually made. And what I found that was helpful for me was to keep track of these things that, my family really loved, so that I could go back and look, like scroll through and look and say, oh, this is a recipe we really loved, and I should probably revisit that. And I think a lot of people keep track of, I don't want to say their life, but their life in those terms.
Yeah.
Like, they're keeping track of things that they enjoy, like you mentioned, places that they've been, hobbies that they have, that they're progressing. I have a really good friend that, my husband was active duty military, and another friend of ours that was active duty military at the time, and he went on to do, he actually bought it for his wife. He did a glass blowing class, and she hated it, but he loved it. He sometimes he will keep track, and I have kept track of like things that he's done, and he kind of uses it sometimes as, he doesn't do it regularly anymore, but when he was very into it at the beginning, it was like he kept track of his progress in blowing this crazy chalice that weighed like 15 pounds for his daughter's wedding, to refining it to be an actual wine glass she could use at their reception that didn't weigh 15 pounds. So I think we all have these niches that we do things like that. And I think one of the things that you and I have talked about before and that social ability talks about is that um, a lot of times what happens with social media and our patients with stroke, brain injury, whether it's traumatic or acquired brain injury, is the family thinks, or caregivers, it doesn't always have to be biological family, but their assumption is that to protect the person, we keep them away from their social media interactions and we just shut that down. And I think I'm sure I was guilty of that early on in my career because that was
Yeah.
a long
That's
time
kind of
ago.
what you did and what was expected, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We wanted to protect our patients from that, but now we've moved into this realm of it's not protective anymore. It does, like you mentioned, deplete autonomy. It takes away um, confidence, really, in the
Yeah.
person's ability to interact with someone beyond their immediate household or their immediate circle when they may have been used to interacting with someone in Australia, for example.
Exactly. Yeah. And this whole idea of looking back is actually really beautiful as well. I can see Sebastian in the chats kind of commented on that. And there's this really nice thing. I don't know if anyone's noticed at the moment, but it's the beginning of the year, so the beginning of 2026. And there's lots of posts around this is what I was doing in 2016. So
Yeah.
looking back 10 years ago
Yeah.
and, just sort of going, oh, wow, things have changed so much since then. But having that ability to look back in your social media as well kind of
Yeah.
helps you to reflect on where you are now. And so it can also kind of give people that sense of identity as well, which I really quite like. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I actually did that yesterday. I looked and then I looked at the pictures from 2016 and I was like, "Oh my God, what
I know, right?
what is happening?"
It's a sign of life and enjoyment and experience is what it
Yes,
is.
I said that about the wrinkles around my eyes,
Exactly.
but, again, it's thinking about, connections that are we're so fortunate to have these connections,
Mm,
um, beyond our geographic circle that's
exactly.
what, a 25 to 50-mile radius, and I'm talking to you and you're Tomorrowland.
Exactly.
You're January 20th and we're still January 19th. So
Yeah.
you have this ability to connect with people. And who are we to say that, are people that we're so fortunate to interact with and work with and help rehabilitate um, don't have that, right? Who
Yeah.
are we to say that they can't do that? So, what are some tools we can use to help build that digital awareness and
Yeah.
those boundaries for those folks that we get to work with?
I mean, one of the things that I always kind of start with is thinking about, well, what do you want to use social media for? Like,
Hmm.
what's your purpose? And I think what the why is kind of what drives everything for us. So I kind of like to start with that. I mean, we know that most people with an acquired brain injury are already using social media. And in fact, most of us around the world use more than one social media
Hmm.
platform, right? Um, and so I think it really needs to start with, well, why do you want to use these social media platforms? What do you want to get out of it? Are you getting that at the moment? Why not? And sort of asking those questions first. So it might be, you know, if it was me, I'd be like, well, I want to use Instagram because I love looking at people's stuff. And yeah, I post a little bit, but not that much. I love seeing what other people create. So um, food is also in there too, Renee. I love looking at other people's food. Um, so, I'd love to use Instagram. I want to, make sure I can go through that and enjoy what I'm seeing. I don't want to be bombarded with things that I don't enjoy. But I also want to use LinkedIn because I've got to get a job.
Yeah.
right? So, on LinkedIn, I need to know how to read people's posts, and I want to post something that's professional. And so I've got two really different reasons and also two really different ways of using social media platforms. And so I think it needs to sort of start with that, and clinicians can build from there in figuring out what supports that person's going to need, right? Like I said, if it's a platform you've got no idea about, learn from that person and go, oh, this is cool. I've not used this. Let's learn more about it together, and draw from their knowledge and experiences and preferences in using that platform. But I think once you've got that sorted out, obviously, I also like to think about, well, who are you connecting with? And so I like to map out who people are kind of connected with and think, okay, this is who you're connected with now. This is who you used to be connected with, because it might have changed.
Right.
People might have dropped off for various reasons, or it might be, I'm completely different. I want to connect with different people that don't know about my brain injury, or I want to connect with others who've had a brain injury,
Yeah.
so figuring out who they want to connect with and helping them navigate how that might happen is a really nice thing that I like to do as well. But then I kind of go, okay, I've got a bit of a map now of what we need to do. And so then I can tailor what I might do with them. And that's kind of why we started with the social ability course is, okay, we want to create something that someone could go into and pick and choose what they want to look at first. So it might be, I want to stay safe. Okay, I'm going to look at that module. Or it could be, I want to learn how to meet other people. So you might go and look at connecting with others kind of thing. And that's just sort of a starting point. We know that that sort of training works. Our pilot studies showed that people had some increases in their confidence, but also how much they enjoyed using Facebook in particular, because that was the specific question we asked. And it was the one platform that everyone had in common after they did the social ability training. So we know training can definitely be helpful. But I think what it needs to be paired with is therapeutic support so that it can really personalize things and help support that individual's goals. So like if someone, like I said before, maybe someone's mum's gone, you can't use social media because you're posting things that are completely inappropriate, right? It's a common one.
Yeah.
But also who wants their mum seeing what they're posting?
Yeah.
So, I don't want, it's really hard to have your parents monitoring your social media. Like, it's not necessarily something you want your parents knowing everything about you kind of thing. So it's thinking, okay, well, what are some strategies that could help you think before you post? So some of the metacognitive strategies we know definitely work in supporting people with brain injury in more offline modes of communication can totally transfer to what we would do to support someone in the online mode, right? So, just that stop, think, post kind of really simple, builds a scaffold for safer posting or more meaningful posting or less reactive posting, so that, we're building in that sort of very clear scaffold. Okay, I need to stop and think about what I want to say so that it doesn't get misinterpreted. Or, okay, is your mum going to get upset if you post that? Yes. Okay. Do you care about that? No? Okay. Post. Because that might be a thing as well. So it's going, there's varying levels of, yes, this is going to upset mum, but I would have posted this anyway before. Right. Or, yes, this is definitely going to upset mum and I understand, so I won't post it, And so getting people to really reflect on what they're doing in social media as well. So they're kind of some of the things I would do, but yeah, I'd certainly focus on recognizing risks and navigating them, managing their emotional responses, but really kind of thinking about how they use social media so that it can be a really positive experience, and really support their ongoing growth, well-being, whatever they want to use it for. Yeah.
We do that for everyone. Let's be
Yeah.
honest. 'Cause
Right.
I get tired of a Facebook argument.
Yeah.
I don't think 99% of these Facebook arguments that I see come across my feed are people with brain injuries. And again, I'm not trying to be funny or make light of it. It's just, I think it's so smart the way that you all designed social ability going through the course myself and thinking about, you mentioned this, all these things, navigating who you're interacting with.
Yeah.
What is the goal of your interaction? Um, do you what is your purpose for using this? What do you want to get out of this? And I think a lot of people go into social media and just, it's like,
Yeah.
well, they don't know me. I'll just go full in, all in, and say all the
Exactly.
things. And then
Yeah.
when you have cognitive or communication challenges, where we know with our TBI patients, they may have inhibition, like disinhibition, so they may just really share. And
Yeah.
then people with aphasia who have communication challenges, and it's really challenging for them to spell or write or get their meaning across at all.
Yeah.
But we also see that in a lot of social media interactions in general. So I think, it sounds like a tall task, I guess, for a lot of speech language pathologists, but it's really not, because it's really prudent for everyone to be thinking about what's your purpose? Like what you
Yeah.
said, how to start. What's your purpose? Who are you interacting with? What is your goal for your interaction? And I think if we thought about that from our own standpoint and then translate that to our patients, it helps give that connection in an easier way, because people get this a lot of times with these lofty ideas of, oh, this is too difficult, or oh, I don't want to say that, or oh, I don't want to approach that with my patient because I might offend them. But really, we're all doing these things. And I find that to be true for a lot of interactions, right? Socially with our
Yeah.
TBI and stroke patients, we're all navigating these things every day. And we tend to forget that um, we're doing it too.
Yeah.
As clinicians, we're doing it too. We're doing it with physicians, colleagues, our physical therapy colleagues, our occupational therapy colleagues, our nursing colleagues, whoever you're dealing with on a daily basis. We're doing this all the time, and we're teaching communication and cognition, but we get so removed a lot of the time from those daily interactions professionally, but then compound it with personal stuff, right? We're
Yeah.
all interacting with our significant others, our siblings, our children, our grandchildren, our parents, whatever it may be. And people kind of compartmentalize, I guess is the best word to describe it, right? We compartmentalize who we're communicating with, and we forget that our communication interactions as professionals and human beings are really not that much different than what our patients are doing. So
Absolutely.
how do we support that that gradual support
Yeah.
and re-engagement with those social platforms?
Yeah. I mean, we all have our personal preferences as well, and our bias.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
platforms that I really don't like, or I've had a negative experience with a particular person on a particular platform, and it changes the way you view the platform, right?
Mhm.
But I think as clinicians, it's like anything we do. You start small, right? You start at the beginning and then you build from there. And so it's just thinking about what's going to be the most meaningful first step. And it could just be choosing one platform that you're going to focus on and figure out what their interests and goals are for their platform and start with just lurking, in that platform. So lurk together. So browse through posts, talk about them, figure out what you like, what you don't like, things that are hard, things that are easy, and start there. So I think lurking, watching, browsing can actually be really beneficial because then, if someone's having trouble because they've got aphasia, it might be, oh, wow, in Instagram, look at these posts. They're posting photos. There doesn't need to be a caption. Or, oh, wow, this person's posted this, but then they've put this caption and they've just used emojis, right? So seeing the different ways that different people post, whatever platform it is, can also give you ideas around the way in which you might want to communicate in those platforms. There's no hard and fast rules. I was writing a WhatsApp message to very close friends this week, and I've got 2 teenage boys, and one of them said to me, "Bless you, what are you doing?" And I went, "What? Oh no, what have I done wrong?" And he's like, "You don't need to use grammar. It doesn't need to be perfect. It's not a group assignment, Mum." When, what are you talking about? You still use grammar. You still use punctuation marks, don't you? It's like, why would you bother? And, so also there's generational change. It's like,
Yeah.
why would you bother? You don't need full stops. It's just a message. They'll figure it out. Like, it's kind of the antithesis of what I would do. It just feels so strange to me to not put the full stop in.
Yeah.
Because then people know there's a new sentence coming. So seeing what other people do can give you ideas. And there's no right or wrong way to post, right? It's just the right or wrong way for you. And it's thinking, okay, if I post like this, these are maybe the responses I'll get. Can I deal with that? Yes, okay. No, then what do we need to modify? And start small. So that would be my advice. But the other thing is, I would bring in family and friends where you're able to as well, and sort of get them to share what they do on social media as well. And so that they can learn together and go, oh, this person who's had a brain injury, Mum, why would you post that? And kind of turn the tables a little bit in some respects. So, it's get them involved as collaborators rather than, enforcing the rules kind of persona, so that it's more of a team effort and they can go to one another and support one another. So that would be my other little ways to try and help support people along the way as a starting point.
No, and it's brilliant because it's really no different than face-to-face communication when we're trying to work with a client with aphasia or a client with CBI who maybe has some, again, disinhibition or doesn't their executive functions are impaired and they're not able to really discern what needs to be shared and when it needs to be shared.
Yeah.
It's really no different than the face to face, but it's sometimes more impactful or more crucial because, again, if you're looking at gaining employment or you're looking at interactions, say say you still have a job, you're someone who had a TBI, you got in an accident, you still have a job, and your coworkers or your employer or your boss is interacting with you online, and you really need to understand how to have that email communication or that response to a Facebook message because really that's so valid for this day and age. I still get Facebook messages from friends who have my personal phone number who maybe I talk to in 5 years or whatever, and they'll send me a Facebook message. I'm like, dude, why didn't you just text me?
I know.
But that's just the way the world works now, and I think it's really valid to think about training that, practicing that, rehearsing that, because it is still a form of communication. And I think it's hard for people who are clinicians because they can't classify it as a verbal, like an expressive language task or a written
Yeah.
language task. If you go back to the old school of, we're going to do 15 minutes of verbal, we're going to do 15 minutes of written, we're going to do reading, we're going to do spoken, or whatever the old model was. It's really hard for reading. It's really
Yeah.
hard for people to translate that. Um, and then you think about newer clinicians, less seasoned clinicians who are coming into the field, and they're not even taught that
No.
anymore. That old school 15-minute model of, verbal,
No.
reading, written,
Yeah.
auditory comprehension. They're not really taught that anymore. So they're kind of like,
What are
I don't know what to do. Where does this fall?
Yeah.
As far as social media, where does that fall in the verbal versus written versus auditory versus
Everything,
yeah,
you
it really is. It's all of
Yeah.
those things. And I
Yeah.
think that's why I love the research and what you all are doing um in this social ability project, because
Yeah.
it really working through the modules. I'm working through the modules as a clinician with, I think I still have my cognition intact, so that's good.
Yeah.
But I'm working through that, and it's geared for people who have had an injury, but I still see the relevance of even like thinking about, my grandson who's going to be 4 in
Yeah.
March. I'm thinking about him and his interactions with people who, you know, people come up to them in the store and they're like, "Oh my God, you're so cute. I see that you have a car." And they're like trying to have a conversation with him. And I'm like, "Stop.
Yeah.
Oh, don't talk to
Yeah.
being protective." It's so challenging because we're
It-
on both sides of the coin and we see both sides of it.
Yeah.
And I really love your example of your sons and be like, what's on WhatsApp here? Stop being grammatically correct.
Yeah. You can see the big eye rolls and everything. Like it was, peak teenage disdain happening.
Bless you, I've been through that. Sorry.
Yeah.
about that.
Uh,
But
but
it's a really good example of what we're looking at and why this is so relevant. How we can navigate this as clinicians, how you all are contributing to the research to support having a specific scripted kind of, it's not really scripted. That's probably not the best word, but having a protocol, a program that doesn't feel regimented. It doesn't feel stoic, if you will. It feels like we're moving through this and I'm going to help you figure this out. We want to make this as realistic in real life as possible.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's lots of debate around whether we create a safe social media for people to practice in versus practicing in real life platforms. And it's very topical in Australia at the moment because I don't know if people are aware, there's a social media ban that's just come into force at the end of last year for teenagers here in Australia. So teenagers under 15 are not meant to access particular social media platforms and they've actually been banned from them. But this doesn't really set them up to learn how to use them and things like that. So, it's similar in a similar vein. I kind of go, well, if I'm setting up a fake social media platform for people with an acquired brain injury to practice in, it's not real life. And it's not setting them up to really navigate the reality of the different platforms. But also, I'd have to create 50 different platforms as well because they're all so different and we use them all so differently. I'm going, that just seems like lots of work, right? Why don't we just look at the platforms that they're using and support them to use them well? I think that's probably the right way to go about it. Because, yeah, I think social media can just be such a lifeline for people, whether it's because they can see others and things that are of interest to them, or whether it's just having someone to talk to for the people that are really isolated, or having the capacity to take their time to compose a message, because actually just talking is hard, then, it just can provide such an opportunity for people to be part of a community that they may not have in their real life environments. And I kind of err on the side of, do I call it real life? Because social media is real life as well, but it's just that it's in this different environment, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's figuring out how to navigate that with people.
Well, I think a lot of people, have become reliant on that in a lot of respects as far as social media goes. And there's some really positives. Like we see a lot of programs here in the States, like for example, the Parkinson's Voice Project. I'm a speak out provider. They do these Facebook group every week. Um, Sometimes they do, I think maybe they even do them daily. I'm really bad. I probably should follow that more. But they do group practice on
Yeah.
Facebook in their group so that they can practice the skills that they've learned with their clinician. They do choral sing-alongs. Those turn into support groups that are either virtual or in person. So there's
Yeah.
things like that. There's a couple of really good um aphasia podcasts now that are led by people with aphasia who are having this podcast
Yeah.
interaction with other people with either another acquired brain injury or aphasia. There's a couple who are doing interactions with their social worker
Yeah.
and navigating the system of disability and how that plays out. So again, I think that there's a lot of positives for social media. There's a lot of negatives too, but we're seeing now that um, people with acquired brain injury, people with TBI are trying to do not just social interaction as far as like we think social, like personal, like meeting people or connecting with people, but they're trying to connect with the larger group of people who are like them, like you mentioned. They're reaching out through showing what it's like for their support group member who had a really rough interaction with a home health aide, or they had a really strange interaction with transportation, trying to get to
Yeah.
their group platform or whatever. And we're seeing a lot of that now. And I think that's where this safety issue comes into play because they're doing really great things. But if they don't have the training, they don't have the executive functions and the inhibition to really navigate through, or they don't have a kind of a person who's like their backup. Because it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
the person running the show. It has to be like someone in the background saying, "Hey, I think maybe this seemed a little off," or you might want to be careful about XYZ. It's so relevant and so important because again, we're looking at autonomy and self-worth, right? We're not just looking at someone who's going on Facebook to be like, I'm going to argue with you about politics or
Yeah.
whatever. They're really, a lot of people are trying to do these um, really interactive things that are helpful and empower other people, but they still need that second layer of someone looking out for them to make sure that they're not in jeopardy of being taken advantage of. Um,
Yeah.
there was a lot of TV shows, 10 years ago, Catfish. I don't
I
know if you
know.
had
I
Catfish.
used to watch it. Yes.
And it was great.
Yes.
So crazy.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many things to navigate in online spaces. And so you've got to weigh them up with the positives, right?
Yeah.
But, the things that we've seen through our research is that, you know, people just get this sense of community through
Hmm.
using social media. They can advocate for themselves or other people.
Yeah.
They feel like if they're able to do that, then they're also giving back to the
Yeah.
community. And so
Mhm.
again, it comes back to that purpose, right?
Yeah.
And so figuring out what is meaningful for that person is really where you need to start. And then you
Mm.
help them navigate the risk along the way.
Yeah. And I think that, looking at, again, that emotional connection, that strengthening
Yeah.
community, that's one of the things I really found helpful about working through social ability was just there's worksheets
Yeah.
and they're virtual, but it's like think about who you want to work with online or think about who you want to connect with. Think about who could be your I don't know if you called it accountability partner, but it was like kind of like a
Same
back
thing.
yeah, like a
Yeah.
backup plan of who can be your almost like your emergency contact
Yeah.
for
I think
social
we ended up
media.
calling it social media buddy. We like
Yeah,
ummed and ahed around what we should call it. But yeah.
yeah. And we just
Oh,
had someone pop up in the
scamfish.
chat. Scamfish.
I'm looking at the chat too. Thanks,
Yeah.
Christina. I'm gonna
Well,
check that out.
older people getting taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Dating scams really, because a lot of times with older people, I think the prevalence has been financial scams, and I know that I talked about this on a prior podcast with my father-in-law who's now deceased. He had a financial scam that was pretty significant, where
Yeah.
someone called and told him he won Publishers Clearinghouse, which used to be a huge thing in the States, but
Yeah.
he needed to wire them money, and he went to Walmart in a real shady part of town in the middle of the night and was gonna wire them money. And my mother-in-law had dementia, and at the time she already had the diagnosis, and she was the one who said, "What are you doing?"
Hang on.
Like, yeah, she's like, "Don't do that."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Amazing. I'm
interesting.
totally gonna check out this YouTube show though. Thanks,
Me
Christina.
too. I wonder if any of them had brain injuries because they give
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yes, hundreds. That's it. Hundreds of thousands of dollars
Yeah.
sometimes, and that for our geriatric population, not always is it uh a social media thing. Sometimes because it's phone a lot. They have.
Yeah. I get text messages all the time and they're scams.
Yeah, my mother-in-law used to say, spam called me today and I called them back. And we would always kind of just laugh it off. And she's like, I would call them and be like, who are you?
Who
Who
are
is
you? Yeah.
spam and why are you calling me? And it got to be, she still had so much of her sense of humor, even with the dementia, that it almost became like she was kind of, I don't know how to even, I can't use the words I
Yeah.
want to because this is a clean podcast. But
Exactly.
she was kind of like a screw you.
Yeah.
I know who you are, and I will, like a Liam Neeson. I will find you. I
I
have
will
this
find you.
special kind of thing. So funny because she's like spam called me, and I called them back.
Yeah. I
But
love
yeah,
that's a great attitude because, yeah, I can see there's more messages in the chat. I'm really sorry to hear that there's been lots of people scammed, but um, it's it's really hard to navigate because the scams are so sophisticated.
mm-hmm,
Um, there's this movie called The Beekeeper, and it may not be something people have seen, but the premise is that there's this old guy that worked for the government, um, and the next door neighbor gets scammed
mm-hmm,
and realizes she's been scammed and unfortunately kills herself. He
mm-hmm,
comes over, finds her, realizes what's happened, and chases down these big scams. But they're like literally a business and
mm-hmm,
just scamming people out of all of their savings. And so they're extremely sophisticated, and
Yeah.
sometimes they're really hard to pick. So it's, really good practice for all of us to get better at navigating these online risks as well, not just people with an acquired brain injury.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I'm so grateful for your research and what you're doing. And the whole team at University of Sydney, you all have been just lovely to work with. And I'm so grateful, because before I got to interview any of you, I was following what you all were doing. And I'm so excited for, you, Dr. Brunner, um, Dr. Tor, the whole team,
Yeah.
Petra.
I'm pretty lucky. I do work with a cracking team. They're awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time you all post a job or like a fellowship, I'm like, oh, maybe I should go to us.
We're here.
Yeah. Because and seriously, if you all are listening, if you're research driven, which hopefully you are, look at the research that's coming out, not just for social media, but just the communication lab in general. You all are doing great work. I'm so appreciative and I'm so
Thanks,
grateful
Brunner.
that you all agreed to come on the podcast and agreed to be interviewed. But more importantly, just the research that you do that's evidence based, having and it's not coming to my brain. Liz, please help me with the bite speech bite.
Right. Yeah.
Speech bite is so good. If you all are interested in,
how I got hooked into research, actually, because I
yes,
worked at SpeechBite for a long time. So
yes, it is.
it is
Speech bite
very
is
helpful.
great. People are reviewing the research for you. You can
Yeah.
subscribe so that you get an email with these research articles that have been reviewed for integrity, validity, making sure that the research, because a lot of research is out there now, is not
Yeah. It's
valid
hard to
stuff.
navigate
It
because
is
there's
hard
so
to
much.
navigate. Yes, and
Yeah.
if you don't know what you're doing, they help you with that. So I'm so grateful for you all, and I just appreciate you agreeing to come on after a whole year.
I know.
It's been a whole year, a little over a year since we first met. So I'm so grateful.
It's Renee.
Of course. But again, thank you for being here, Liz. It was so great to see you.
It was a
And
pleasure.
I'm
I'm so glad we finally made it work.
I know, me too. Liz, will be in touch. Great to see you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Great to see you. Bye.
Great to see you.